Okay. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Harriet Behar, and I work for the um, Organic Farmers Association. We are a national organization um, that tries to help organic farmers be more successful in their production. We do a lot of advocacy in DC and at the regional and state level. And this webinar, I was asked to help you all understand more about the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the NRCS, and what kind of funding opportunities they have that would be very helpful for organic farmers, as well as so you can be more of an advocate in helping them obtain those. Um, so just again, the Organic Farmers Association is made up of certified organic farmers and supporters and organic farm organizations. I'd recommend you go to our website. There's quite a bit of good information for organizations and organic farmers. And we also are somewhat funded by TOP, just as all of you are. The I guess. Okay, so today the topics we're going to cover is I'm going to try to help you understand the acronyms. NRCS, and if you work at all with the government, they like live on acronyms. I have not yet been able to like write a whole paragraph in all acronyms, but I bet you could. Um, so we're going to talk about NRCS, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and then all of these different acronyms that are programs and practices that they offer to farmers, and we'll explore what those are and how they are useful. So don't be afraid. If I can get you all to understand those acronyms by the end of this webinar, we will have succeeded. So the NRCS is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. It is an agency within the USDA, and it was created during the Dust Bowl in the 1930s when the basically most of the West was blowing across the country in dust. It was originally called the Soil Conservation Service, but then they kind of expanded into promoting biodiversity, clean water. So they really do cover forestry. There's a lot of different areas that they have technical assistance, which is all free, and dollars to help farmers improve the natural resources on their farms. Uh, Nearly every county in the US has an office, maybe some in like northern Alaska don't, but pretty much every farm, every county that has like a farm service agency office has an NRCS office too. And the Farm Service Agency, FSA, uh, works a lot with NRCS. And actually, if a farmer wants to receive funds from the NRCS, they have to go into the Farm Service Agency office and get what's called a farm number. And they then have the boundaries of the farm. The farmer can then get aerial photographs for free, soil maps of their farm. And then they have a farm number, and then the NRCS can uh, give them technical assistance and dollars. But without that FSA number, so if it hasn't been a farm before, um, then they'll have to go into the office. Or if they're new to it, the previous owner may have had a farm number. And so then that farm number will be transferred to the new number. Um, the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP, hope you're keeping up. So far, we've learned NRCS, FSA, and CRP. CRP is a program under the Farm Service Agency, FSA, that pays farmers to not farm their land. But they have to put in a specific type of perennial cover. They can actually, many places have They give you a little bit more money if you are going to put in native plantings and that sort of thing to promote more wildlife. And it's a 10-year contract. And typically then the NRCS will work with you and the farmer and the FSA on installing those practices in CRP, the Conservation Reserve Program. So then that's a 10-year contract. So I'm going to go first into EQIP. And if you notice, there is no U after the Q because this is an acronym and not a word. This is the core program of NRCS. This is where they give out most of their technical assistance and dollars to farmers. Typically, those dollars are about that the farmer can receive. They've figured it out regionally that it's about 3/4 of the cost of that practice that farmer might do, putting in cover crops, like what the seed might cost and what, the time of going across the field with the tractor and the drill, what that all costs. And then that's how they figure out that amount. And that is regionally determined. Under EQIP, if you notice, the word incentives is in the name. So that's going to help you remember Environmental Quality Incentives Program. These dollars can only be used in areas that it has not been done before, or you're kind of improving on that practice. So if someone has already grown a cover crop, but then they want to, and it's only been, let's say, winter rye or oats, and they add in a legume, that is an improvement, and then that can be paid for under EQIP. But if they've already grown a cover crop in a certain area and they just want to grow the same one, they can't get money because this is an incentives program to have the farmer do something new. And the whole point to this was taking on some of the risk, right? Then let's get them to try these new conservation practices on their farms, and we will then help them with the dollars so they're willing to do that experimentation because they don't have as much cost in doing it. Everything that is funded by the NRCS must address resource concerns, and that would be soil erosion, soil quality. Same with water. There's a lot of practices that help improve stream banks and fish habitat, as well as groundwater, air. So there would be, things, especially like with manure lagoons that they have covers that they put on there that are funded by the NRCS, not that we like that. We'd rather have our animals out on pasture. Plants, they have a lot for plant productivity, helping with adding soil amendments to bring up the soil fertility, adding diversity to a pasture for longer pasture season, as well as higher quality nutrition for the animals. There's a lot of funding for livestock. Actually, the law is that 60% of all of the NRCS funding must go to livestock operations. So there's a lot of money for grazing, setting up rotational grazing plans, putting up the fences, having animal walkways, putting in watering facilities. All of this is all covered under NRCS. And the people they have in the office are really expert at figuring out what size a paddock should be. If someone wants to put in, 15 paddocks for rotationally grazing their cattle or goats or sheep, they have people there who know how big they should be, and all of that internal fencing can be paid for, that movable electric fence. And then lastly, they do have some things for energy, which include being more efficient in the use of energy. The other thing is too, they have engineers there. So if there needs to be a stream crossing or someone wants to do raised beds on a contour or whatever, there are engineers, and all of that is free. And that's really quite amazing. Of course, taxpayer funded. So there's also CSP, not to be confused with CRP. CSP is called the Conservation Stewardship Program. This was put in about 10 years ago with the NRCS, and it's a 5-year contract. So if you've already done quite a bit of conservation practices on the farm, then this is where you would go. You would go to the next. This is for people who are already good conservation stewards. And then there's over 140 enhancements. They don't call them practices, so we don't get confused. And it's a 5-year contract, whereas under EQIP, it can be anywhere from a 1 to 3 year contract, and sometimes a little bit longer. These also have to address resource concerns, and I'll go into that. And there's actually 2 specific organic bundles, which have a little bit higher payment than other bundles, which would be like 3 to 5 different enhancements that you would do on the farm, or the farmers would be doing. They do focus a little bit more on wildlife and water and forestry than just EQIP, which is more focused on working lands, which would be active agricultural farmland. But as we know in organic, those field borders, can really offer, beneficial insect habitat and things like that. So we see our farms in organic as a full ecosystem. So CSP can be very useful, and it can be, once you do some EQIP, right, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, you do some practices under EQIP, and then you kind of then you can then improve upon them under CSP. So here we go again. CPA. Are you keeping track here? NRCS, FSA. Hope everyone knows what that is. EQIP, CRP, that's the FSA program for 10 years. CSP, that's under NRCS. Now we have CPA. This is a plan for a certain type of activity. So if a farmer wants to transition to organic, they have a plan for that. So then someone who, and Karen will be talking about this, a technical service provider, a TSP, can be hired. Most of the money goes to the TSP, not to the farmer, for writing this plan. Like I said here, the only problem with this, if you do have someone who you feel could work directly with the NRCS, it could set back the actual activity by a year to 2 years by the time the plan gets written and everything, and then they can then move on and do the practices. So they don't do the practices when the plan is being written. However, if they have a plan and certain practices have been recommended, they get more points, and I'll go into this, and their application for those practices that they want funded is more likely to get funded because they've had a plan ahead of time. And of course, the farmer is very involved in figuring out how those activities will be prioritized. Now we have this, and this is something new. So I'm not that familiar with it, and a lot of TSPs are still learning about it as well. Design and implementation activities. So this is also funded under EQIP. Sometimes it can be done at the same time as the plan, that's CPA, or it could be done after the plan. And this would be more involved in how many seeds per acre you're going to, and what kind of cover crop mix you're going to have. So there's a lot more of a design factor to this. It has to also be written by that technical service provider, that TSP. And again, the practices are not being funded. This is just giving more detail on helping the farmer do the implementation. It can be very useful if it's somewhat complicated, if the plan is quite complicated and a lot of things work synergistically to have someone actually do this design plan for them. So that's the DIA, Design and Implementation Activities. Okay, this is also brand new. I have not seen anybody even approach doing this, but it is funded. And as time goes on, we will find more of this being reviewed. This also funded under EQIP. This can be written by QIs, which are qualified individuals that then self-certify. Organic inspectors can be considered a QI. Anybody who's a certified crop consultant, things like that. Foresters. It depends on what this monitoring and evaluation activity will be. But it's pretty new. I don't think you're going to see much of this in the next year, but probably in 2 years, we'll start seeing NRCS really kind of move towards wanting this, especially again, if it's a complicated operation. They might want to make sure that what is being done is really being effective. And that's what this one's all about, the CEMA. Okay, here's a few more. Russell 2. You ready for this? Revised Universal Soil Loss Equation version 2. Now, whenever someone does a conservation plan, that technical service provider must run this very complicated computer program that puts in all the types of tillage, including the machinery, what kind of planting is done in a year. And then they will and that the slope and the soil type are all embedded in this program down to, the 160-acre parcel. The soil maps will help figure out what kind of soil you're in, what the topography is, and it will then judge if the farmer would be having a lot of soil loss through their activities. So this is because organic in row cropping especially relies on so much tillage for our herbicide. Without using herbicide, we a lot of times organic farmers don't get they get kind of dinged, and it shows that there's a lot of soil loss. I have tried to talk to the people at NRCS about including in there some beneficial points for having higher biological life in the soil, which tends to be more of a glue and hold things against erosion. But we don't have good numbers for that. Like there is no actual, or they're very expensive tests for that. So far, the organic farmers tend to have an issue. However, the technical service providers, the TSPs who work a lot with organic farmers, have figured out how to kind of modify a few things within Russell 2, that soil loss equation, and help the farmer not lose points. The thing is, the reason why the points are an issue is that if it shows that there's too much soil loss, then the NRCS will not pay for the practices on that farm. There's also there's a WEPS, wind erosion prediction system. If you're in an area where there's a lot of wind and a lot of sandy soil in particular, then this can be put in place. Again, the NRCS started out as the Soil Conservation Service, so they want to really promote conservation of soil and keep it in place. This is a new one. The next one, COMET, which is a carbon sequestration program. I don't know anyone who knows how to use it. I tried to understand it, and It was a little bit beyond me, but I'm sure if I spent some time with it. What's good though is that the most of the NRCS staff know how to use Russell 2, WEPS, and Comet. They've all had lots of training. So if there is somebody, a farmer is getting practices and wants to, and there's some kind of carbon in setting incentives through, there's, a lot of new programs out there, they can go to the NRCS and help them use Comet to prove that they should be able to get these extra dollars for their carbon sequestration. So you as an organization don't have to understand how to use all these things. This is something the technical service provider, the TSP, has to do. But it is useful for you to know that these computer programs are going to be used on the organic farms. There's also a brand new practice called organic management, and this is for both transitioning and existing organic farmers. It is under EQIP, so it means it has to fund only new practices, but of course it can be new land being transitioned or land that maybe never had a cover crop on it before. It's on a field by field basis that that incentive is judged. It's a very interesting practice. It's a suite of practices that work synergistically, that work together to actually improve the resources of the farm. It is somewhat complicated and new, and this is not the way NRCS typically does things. The only they have had these enhancement bundles under CSP, but they've never had groups of practices under EQIP before. So this has been pretty tough getting the NRCS to implement this, but we hear that they are going to be educated. There are more than 20 payment scenarios for this practice. That's one of the reasons why they don't like it. And it's like specialty crop growers and simple crops with livestock or without livestock. Are you historically undisturbed? Are you a beginning farmer? These are all the things that change the payment scenarios. But there is another webinar on 823 on our website that you can watch on the Organic Farmers Association. So you can, check that out if you want to know more about 823. It's very exciting because we have never had a practice specific in EQIP that was helping people in the transition to organic. So it's really a recognition that organic can be a benefit to doing good conservation on the farm. And some of these, the reason why you could possibly choose this practice is that because it also includes what they call income foregone, like during the transition, you could be earning less money on the farm. The same price that you would get for doing cover crops in just regular EQIP as a single practice would be higher actually under 823 because it includes this transition income loss. So that's another exciting thing. So let's learn how to use the NRCS. So the NRCS, I don't know why they don't like telling people this, but I'm going to tell you this. That they have what's called ranking dates, and all the applications that they receive in between the various ranking dates. Sometimes they only have one ranking date per year. Sometimes they have two. And that would be the same for EQIP and CSP. Hope you know what I'm talking about. Those will then be ranked against each other. And then each county has a certain amount of money, and those with the higher points get better ranking and get funded. So like I said, that if they would have had a plan and now they're applying for practices, plans typically do get funded. So that would be, they would rank higher. If the practices that they're doing are recommended in an NRCS plan that they had done the year before, those get extra points. Anytime you do more than one or two practices, especially if they focus on soil erosion, those rank very higher. You can ask them which practices have higher ranking points. And at least here in my state, they only give that information out for about a month. I don't know why they have to hide it, but they do. Um, right now, the ranking dates are not yet up on the NRCS. I have that link there where you can look and find out what the ranking date will be in November. Please encourage your farmers. Now they can go into the NRCS office anytime during the year. So, but how frustrating is it for them to walk into the office the day after the ranking date for that year, and then they have to wait a whole year? That's why it's important to know the ranking date. It's a good idea to have them contact NRCS at least 2 months in advance, because the NRCS person has to go out and visit the farm and talk to them about the resource concerns and help with that application. But the NRCS has to have eyes on that farm before any application will be submitted for ranking and then for payment. So, they can go in anytime, but if they really do want to have funding for the following crop year, they need to get in, it's time to start telling them to go into the office. And like I said, the more practices they have under EQIP, the better chance. And they can get like a 3, sometimes even like a 4-year contract and spread it out. So they wouldn't have to do everything at once. If they're putting in contour strips or waterways or cover crops or beneficial insect habitat, they can have each of them be done in one of 4 years, but have it written as one contract. So then it ranks higher because of all of those points they get from each of those practices. So I hope everyone's following me. This is very complicated, but once you understand the system, it can be really a boon for your farmers to have that technical assistance and funding. As I hope most of you know, the NRCS has a practice for high tunnels, so people can get a high tunnel. I believe even if you've had a high tunnel for at least, I think it's either 5 or 7 years, you can get another one. I always bundle the high tunnel with irrigation when I'm recommending it, because they'll pay for drip tape, they'll pay for overhead sprinklers in a high tunnel. They won't pay for heat or electricity, but they'll pay for the irrigation, they'll pay for mulching, they'll pay for pest management, all of these things out in the field in a high tunnel. This has been very, very helpful for farmers to be able to extend their growing season and even grow crops like turmeric and ginger, under cover. And I myself am growing peaches. I live in Wisconsin in a high tunnel. So, I found high tunnel growing to help me not just expand my growing season, but expand my zone, because I can't grow peaches in the outdoors. So, again, the strategy is to bundle as many high-ranking practices together so that high tunnels don't really rank very high with points. So if they have some kind of soil erosion that they're doing, bundle those together with the high tunnel, and then they'd have a better chance of getting the high tunnel. Under organic management 823, the payments can be between $250 and $2,200 per acre. That $2,200 would be for a specialty crop grower under 5 acres. So it's very attractive payments. And this fall, the NRCS has quite a bit of funds because of the Inflation Reduction Act, had a lot of money for conservation. And this is really the first year that we're seeing those funds trickle down to the county level. And as I said before, livestock gets up to, must get at least 60% of what that county gives out. So the first thing to do is to identify a resource concern with the farmer. And in the chat, I put a link to a checklist to help farmers and you go over in plain language what a resource concern might be. And then the second one would be to prioritize when the farmer wants to do it. And understanding this process can really help in having a successful application. So I already put this in the chat, and so this is like a before and after. So you can see now these animals actually have good grazing, and the resource of that stream is being protected from a lot of silt buildup and other things. So under soil, these are some of the resource concerns. Sheet and rill erosion, that's what they call rill erosion on the bottom. Gully erosion, I think everyone knows what a gully is. Wind erosion, even compaction can be dealt with. They'll, help pay for practices that can loosen up the soil, deep-rooted cover crops, things like that. Organic matter depletion, this is where like cover cropping comes in, and something called conservation crop rotation, which would be changing from continuous row crops to including legumes. They even have a practice that will pay for doing the organic no-till, which includes the use of a roller crimper. So there's a lot there in soil that I don't think I've ever been on a farm that has, unless there have been like 100% perennial crops, that doesn't have to worry about soil erosion. The next thing is water. So they'll pay for some ditching for waterways, for actually, having the cattle only have a certain area that they can go and get the water, and not just walk up and down and destroy the the shoreland, the stream banks, that sort of thing. They'll help with inefficient irrigations. That's why the drip tape and the sprinklers in the high tunnel, because somebody could be just in there with a wand and have to, be in there for 2 hours to water everything. No, you could just turn on the hydrant and away goes the sprinklers or the drip tape. This can also be done out in the fields. They have money for irrigation there. And, anything that can be done to improve water quality. For plants, they have a practice called plant productivity and health, plant structure and composition, which means increasing diversity, like in a hayfield or a pasture, doing things to lessen plant pressure. So they'll help, they'll do like a pest management plan. They'll help pay for bat houses and bird houses, and they love pollinator habitat. There's numerous practices, depending on what the location is, where you can put in, the farmer can put in pollinator habitat. And I can say on my own farm, I have done these practices, and I can't remember the last time I used any kind of spray. Now, I know you in the Southeast have more to worry about than I do up here, but we get bugs and they eat our crops. But the beneficial insects have really helped. And of course, even invasive species. So if there's like on field edges, in pastures, they have a practice to help with that. For animals, there's, the foraging, improving quality for that, helping with, they have like a practice for putting gutters on large barns where like all the water runs off the roof and then erodes out the barnyard. They'll come in and engineer improving the barnyard so the slope is less and you get less erosion, and they'll pay for the gutters. So they really have a lot of comprehensive activities. I really can't go into all of them in the amount of time that we have, but if you can't tell I'm enthusiastic about what the NRCS can do in helping organic and farmers improve their operations, well, I'm not doing my job, because I am. And like I said, 60% of all the funding has to go to livestock. So if you are working with livestock people, and that's all species, I mean, I've seen them help people who have yaks. So, beef cattle, dairy cattle, goat, meat and milk goats, meat and milk and fiber sheep, fiber goats. I mean, all of that is covered. And then lastly, I mean, they would help put up solar panels for, pumping water out in a pasture. Even they have like putting extra insulation around like a cooler. But if someone wanted to buy the cooler first, they would have to go to the Farm Service Agency, has money for microloans. And then the last thing, if someone wanted a larger solar array, then there is the Rural Energy for America program under the USDA Rural Development. And I have solar panels on my farm for that because of the various activities I do that use electricity. I'm getting close to needing to be done. So, a lot of the things in organic work synergistically, work together with NRCS. Like we have to have buffer zones between the non-organic and organic. So let's maybe use those buffer zones, right, to work with NRCS and put in like a windbreak to lessen the drift potential. Field borders, these are for pollinator habitat, same with the hedgerows, and also filter strips along the edges, inside. So you can work with farmers and look at an aerial photograph and say, you know what, we can do hedgerow here and windbreak there. It's not like you have to do only field border around your edges. There's a lot of options. For soil fertility and crop nutrients, there's lots of different things. They pay for helping with mulching for specialty crop growers, nutrient management plans to really work with field by field with the crops being grown to have the right balance of nutrients. And then you walk into the office and you still have your hedgerow, but there's cover crop and residue management. And there's like so much that can be done. You can see how we're bundling practices together. Crop rotation, there's the high tunnel, the hayland planting, and then still we have the filter strip and the field border. So there's a lot of things that NRCS can offer. In livestock, they have a wonderful composting. If somebody's a fairly large operation and they want to set up a compost operation, the NRCS will pay for the engineering so it's at the right slope. They'll pay for an overhead roof if there's enough rain that they don't want the nutrients running out, or even covers. There's a lot that they will pay for. Of course, the fencing is a big issue. They will not pay for perimeter land fence, but they'll pay for everything interior, both permanent and movable. These are some of the plans that they'll do that transition to organic. Number 138, they do nutrient management plans, they do irrigation water plans. And a lot of the photos in here I picked from all the different states that you are all in. So these are pictures of Georgia and Florida and North the Carolinas. I know these things are going on there. These are two of the main ones that you might see farmers using, that nutrient management and the pest management, for that technical assistance for people who really know the soils and the pests of your region. They can be very useful. So the process is that the farmer will visit the NRCS office. Then they'll come out and visit the land. They'll have an inventory of conservation concerns and landowner goals. But the more that you can help them understand, then they can discuss it with the NRCS, especially if they're not knowledgeable of organic. They may not see beneficial insect habitat as a good thing. So using that checklist that is in the chat would be very useful to the landowner so they can speak intelligently with the NRCS, almost in their language, and say, no, I have a resource concern here. I need to have a buffer. I get drifted on. I really want a windbreak. And that's, and then the NRCS could say, oh, I see your issue. They may not look at a fence line and say it needs a windbreak because they don't understand that the organic farmer doesn't want drift. And then at the end, the NRCS will come back. If the contract is assigned, they will come back before any payment is made to make sure that it was actually implemented. So you want to tell them to make an appointment, be prepared as much as they can with resource concerns, although the NRCS person might find more. They need to know if they want to go for EQIP or CSP, or sometimes even CRP if they're not quite ready to farm. I've had a lot of beginning farmers that only wanted a little bit, and then they knew that they were going to expand later. So then they do some of their land in CRP, which is a 10-year contract. Historically underserved and beginning farmers get higher payments than everyone else. So if you're working with them, they get 100% of the estimated cost instead of 75%. And if the NRCS has things that maybe the farmer doesn't want to prioritize, the farmer needs to be ready to advocate for their own goals. So here is how you get a hold of me. This is how you call me. And I'm going to pass this on now to Karen. Karen, are you there?
I am here. I am coming. Can you stop sharing?
I'm just, yes.
Thank you, Harriet and Karen. Today's webinar, NRCS Program Support for Organic Farmers, was brought to you by the Southeast Transition to Organic Program. We want to acknowledge their funding. The webinar is supported through the USDA Department of Agriculture Transition to Organic Partnership Program. TOP is a program of the USDA Organic Transition Initiative, and it is administered by the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service and the National Organic Program. TOP in the Organic Transition Initiative is a national initiative that covers 6 regions. Our particular program is in the Southeast region, and it includes 7 states: North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, and 2 territories, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. TOP, in our particular region, the Southeast Transition to Organic Partnership Program, has 5 key program areas: farmer-to-farmer mentorship, community building, technical assistance and training, data collection, workforce training and development. We invite everybody who is listening to this webinar to check out our website and learn more about the Southeast Transition to Organic Partnership Program. If you have any questions, please contact us through our contact information. You can call us at 352-377-6345, or you can email us at setop@foginfo.org. Once again, we invite everybody to visit our website and learn more about the Organic Transition Program in the Southeast. Thank you again, everyone, for joining our webinar. And please check out our website for more events and future webinars.